Hi, welcome to Driveway Talk. I'm Ron Anderson, your host. Today we have a couple of guests on, and why don't you fellas introduce yourself?
My name is David Bourn.
My name is Bob Anderson.
Yeah, that was nice and loud, Bob. Anyway, today's show is called At the Movies, and what we're going to do is talk about Searchlights, movie theaters, projectionists, people who run movie projectors, and this is the fellas that did it. So why don't we start off with you, Dave? How did you get into this running movie projections?
Back in the 60s, it was a union, pretty tight union, and it was like a father and son type operation. So I just managed to squeak in.
Well, you started at Jefferson Junior High School, didn't you?
Yeah.
Back in the 60s?
Yeah, I did.
And what they had was, and I went there, at 7th to 9th grade, we had movies after lunch for about 20 minutes, and you paid a penny.
Right. Yeah.
And did you do that too,
I
Bob?
used to run them in Nokomis Junior High School and then Roosevelt.
Oh, yeah, okay. And
Yep.
then you did that, and then
Yep.
you did Jefferson, because we went to Jeff together.
Yeah.
We'd run, in essence, a feature a week. The average feature was 90 to 100 minutes.
Sure.
And we'd run about 20 minutes a day, and like Dave said, a penny a day.
Yeah.
They'd come up after eating their sandwich down in the lunchroom and come up to the auditorium and watch about 20 minutes of the movie, and at the end of the week, we'd run the last reel.
Sure. We all look forward to that, too.
Yeah.
The kids did. And I'm 65. When I grew up in the 50s, 60s, I was downtown shining shoes and going to movie theaters and earning a little money, but we always went to the movies. We had a lot of movies to go to. And, you know, a lot of people didn't look up in back of their seats, but way up on top was that little hole with the light coming out. And you guys were up there, weren't you?
What's that flickering light doing up there?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I did the same thing. I'd go to our neighborhood theater out in South Minneapolis, which was the Loyola Theater at 50th Street and 34th Avenue South. And I'd go there on Saturday matinees, and I spent more time looking back up at where that light is coming from than I did watching the screen.
Sure.
And, you know, it just got to be a habit. But I got my first projector when I was probably about 10 years old, a toy projector for a Christmas present. And it was a hand wind thing.
8mm?
And you get a Felix the Cat little 8mm picture.
Sure.
And that's kind of where I first got interested in it.
Well, you know, it used to be a big deal to go to the movies. When we were kids, there were long lines and people would dress up, and the searchlights would be shining in the sky and you could follow them forever. And that's where Dave comes in. You own Searchlights, don't you?
Yeah.
What's the name of your company?
Hollywood Premiere.
Premiere. And I remember when you started that business very young, and you have been operating in the Twin Cities forever.
Since 1964.
How many Searchlights do you have?
I'm running about 4 right now.
4?
Yeah.
You have more than that, though.
Yeah. We got a few for parts.
Oh. But now what are they, about 80 million candle power?
800 million.
800 million candle power.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. I can't even fathom that.
Yeah. They're
Wow.
real bright, you know.
But isn't that so, Bob? In years gone by, when the searchlights were in the sky, you'd see them all over the city, and they'd be flashing here and there. And
oh yeah, and if I recall right, Dave, were they Army surplus?
Yeah.
From World War II.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, they were Army surplus. So how did you get them?
Not
on the computer. They didn't have that.
We just picked up one here and one there, and pretty soon.
At military bases?
No, kind of bought them from civilians that had them. They're, you know.
They probably had an outlet that had old trucks and lights that you could buy stuff from.
Yeah.
And did either of you work at the RKO, the Radio City Music Hall downtown?
I worked at a number of times filling in down there, mainly because it was, like Dave said, it was a union thing that was very tough to get into in the first place. But it was pretty much a father-son type of thing, but I worked extra quite a bit.
Sure.
And from working in other theaters around.
So when you first started out running film in the theaters, did the new guy always get the worst theaters, and then the.
It was strictly based on seniority, and if a theater job opened up, you'd bid on it. And whoever had the most seniority in the union, when you bid on it, would get the job.
Sure. Well, young people don't realize this, but back then, there were a ton of theaters all over the Twin Cities. I mean, I wouldn't even know how to guess how many theaters there were. Do you know?
Well, the industry used to be based on, in essence, your local neighborhood theater. And virtually every kind of distinctive neighborhood in the Twin Cities or any place had a local neighborhood theater, and that's where everybody went. And I used to, for example, for the Oleola Theater, on Saturdays, among with other kids, we'd deliver handbills around the neighborhood and hang them on the doorknobs of the next week's attractions.
Oh, wow!
And so people could see what was coming to their movie theater.
Wow.
Yep.
Now, when you talk about these theaters, can you give a general location? Where was that? What is it? The Iola?
That was Leola,
Leola?
34th Avenue South and 50th Street. Well, the building is long gone.
Oh, I see.
But that was the neighborhood theater. It was only about a block and a half from the old Nokomis Junior High School, and a popular spot for kids of our age, you know.
When we were kids, we would make a little money and then go on a Saturday up to the Vogue and American, and there'd be long lines around the corner for kids getting in, and all day long, if you were under a certain age, it'd be a quarter, and if you were like over 15, 50 cents, and you got 3 movies, 3 Stooges, popcorn, everything for that.
Sure, I worked the Vogue a number of times filling in, maybe Dave did too, and it was right on the outside of the old Nicollet Ballpark left field fence, and once in a while a home run hit in the old Nicollet Park ballpark would land on the roof of the Vogue Theater. And
it would.
It was a good place maybe to get an old baseball.
Yeah. Well, when we were real little, and of course we're first cousins. We lived on 2nd Avenue there, and I was a little guy, but I was pretty little, and a couple of neighborhood boys would take me over to the ballpark, and we'd stand out there on Nicollet Avenue, and then I think when the ball come over and landed on Nicollet Avenue, so you get a free ticket in.
Sure.
But they'd always grab the ball. I think I had a couple of my lot, and they went in, and there I sit, and I couldn't find my way home.
Yeah,
so.
Well, they used to wait outside Nicollet Ballpark there on 31st off Nicollet,
and
wait for foul balls to get hit out of the ballpark and land out in the street, and take the ball over to the entrance and get into the ball game.
Sure. Dave, you still are a projectionist, aren't you?
Yeah.
For where? Uptown?
I worked the Lagoon Cinema.
Lagoon Theater? And are you one of the very few left?
Probably the last one left.
The last one?
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. I'm honored. You're the last one. And so you are in the union by yourself?
Yeah. No, we still got members.
We still got members, but basically there really aren't any union motion picture operators around anymore. Most of it's non-union that you see nowadays, and of course projection methods have changed so much that it's just not like it used to be.
Right. Well, my dad, who's gone, he used to work in the 50s for Paramount Pictures.
He was a booker for Paramount Pictures, and I used to work just down the street from where he worked at 12th and Curry, because I was the projectionist at 20th Century Fox Screening Room, which was just on on Curry Avenue.
Oh, on Curry, okay.
Yeah, and it was just about a block from where your dad worked.
Sure. Yeah, he used to, we'd go downtown and see him when we were kids, and then we would, at times he would say, do you want to go to a Jerry Lewis screening, which was, I believe, on the corner of 12th and Hennepin. They had a building where they had a movie theater there.
There was a screening room there.
Oh, that was, okay. Yeah. Okay, is that still there?
No, it's long gone.
Oh, okay.
I worked there a number of times running. It was, because on the screening rooms, you worked it on an on-call basis.
Okay.
And there was the Paramount screening room, and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer had a screening room, and 20th Century Fox had a screening room.
And all those companies have now left the Twin Cities and are in Chicago or Hollywood?
Yeah, they're all gone in that sense, yeah.
It's sad, you know. Now, Dave, you worked with Bob when you were younger? You guys are, Bob's older than you, but you worked with Bob when you were a kid, right?
Yeah, we worked on the World Theater and the University Film Society, which is the Bell Museum.
Right.
And that's pretty much gone.
That's pretty much gone too.
Oh,
well, the business has changed so much. You know, nowadays when a movie opens up, you'll see it opening up at a number of theaters in, say, the entire Twin City metro area, all at the same time. It used to be that a movie would open up like downtown at the State Theater or the Orpheum Theater or the Century Theater. One movie would open up at one theater, and that's the only place it would open up.
Oh, I see.
And then after it finished its run there, it would move out to what they used to call a 28-day house. And the only 28-day house in the Twin Cities in those days was the Uptown Theater, and where I worked quite a bit too.
Sure.
And the Uptown, in essence, which was owned by Minnesota Music Company, which was owned by Paramount, had first dibs on a movie when it left downtown. Oh. And then they were, after the Uptown Theater, which had a 28-day release run, there would be, some of the theaters would have 35 days that they could get a movie out of downtown, and then 42 days, and that's just the way the system used to work.
Sure. And young people nowadays, they can't relate to a lot of this because their movies are on DVDs, and they get their movies off the computers, and as soon as they come out, they're out in the store, and that's kind of sad also. I mean, because it was an event to go to a movie.
Definitely.
And the working people, you would work all week and get a babysitter, and you would go to the movies, and people would dress up just like church. They would dress up. Yep. And I remember when I was a kid, everybody wearing hats and black and white wingtips and everything else. And people don't dress up anymore, do they?
No, they dress down.
They dress down.
And,
yeah, they dress down all right.
It's just a totally different atmosphere.
It is. It is.
Theaters nowadays, and
yeah.
And I don't know if theaters would exist if it wasn't for popcorn.
Yeah,
they make more money on the popcorn than they make on the picture, because generally speaking, the theaters bid and buy motion pictures based on percentages of the dollars that they take in, and sometimes those percentages can get as much as 90% that they pay to the producer of the film.
You mean they do that today? That's how they...
It's still being done the same way in that sense.
Sure.
But again, it's not opening in just one theater for its initial run. It's opening all over the whole area at one time.
Dave, do you know how many people were actually in the union at once, at Tops, or
I believe we had over 100 at one time.
We had, if I can remember right, and I was business agent for a couple of different terms for the union. I think we peaked at about 120 members in those days.
Oh, wow. Yep. Wow. That's quite a few, because those members were in the theaters, and it just shows you how many theaters there were.
Right.
Every neighborhood had a theater. I know it's just the pages were full.
And like your downtown theaters, your Stage, your Century, your Lyric, they would have multiple operators working, splitting shifts over the week's run.
Oh, they did. Oh, wow.
And there were 4 and 5 operators working in one theater at one time.
Oh,
not one operator at a time.
Sure.
But splitting the weekly hours.
Now, down on Washington Avenue, which was our slum area of Minneapolis at one time, didn't you tell me one time when the hobos and bums would come in, spend all day sleeping in there?
I worked, and I think Dave worked down there too, but for example, one theater was called The Loop, and it was simply, we used to call them drugstore theaters. It was just a long drugstore, empty, but it had theater seats